site. So if there's anybody on the call that is not comfortable having it being recorded, then if you'd please hang up, you can listen to the recording later. If not, then we'll get ready to go. All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this is our second edition of this Modern Data Platform in 30 Days, or the DPI 30 engagement that is offered by Microsoft and Tallan. And just to start out, we're going to get into a quick agenda of the event today. We're going to do some welcome and introductions. DPI 30, what is it and why should you really care about it as a customer? Who is Tallan? Some DPI 30 basics for SLG client successes, and closing Q&A. So I wanted to start out here with some introductions. My name is Dan Fluitt. I'm the Vice President of Sales here at Tallan. And then along with me, two of the presenters are going to be Christy Verma, who is in the Cloud Economics team at Microsoft, and Bart Schorst, who is one of the data and AI specialists, who I'm sure that most of you are very familiar with and have worked with. So we're going to start it off. I'm going to hand it over to Christy to go through the basics of the Azure DPI 30 engagement from the Microsoft side and tell you a little bit about what it's about. So take it away, Christy.
Perfect. Thank you, Dan. Good morning, everyone. Well, I guess, yeah, it's morning for everyone on the call today. So my name is Christy Verma. I am part of the Solution Assessment or Cloud Economics team here at Microsoft. And the program that I support is here. We're here to talk a little bit more about today with the Data Platform in 30 Days engagement. What is a DPI 30 or Data Platform in 30 Days, and how does it apply to your organization? Really, a data platform engagement, this particular engagement is really designed for customers who want to modernize their data estate. And using this particular engagement, it's a very streamlined process to help the customers that we support to deploy Azure data services within their environment. So what exactly does that mean? Well, there's a lot of different data points within every customer's organization, and what we're looking to do is take a set of key business scenarios and prove those out using Azure data services. That could mean a whole variety of things. That could mean trying to run some data and analytics on a very specific use case. It could be reducing the time for a reporting cycle or reporting process from maybe 24 hours down to 4 hours. There's a lot of different ways that we can utilize this particular engagement to make it relevant to our customers and prove out a series of methodologies and scenarios within your environment. What's great about this assessment or this engagement is that at the end of the engagement, which is a 4 to 6 week process, you end up with a fully functioning environment in which you utilize in your own tenant and continue to build upon and ingest additional data sets, etc. So this is a very hands-on, teach you to fish, learn how to utilize the environment through the assistance of a partner. It's a really good opportunity for you to understand the capabilities within Azure Data Services and how they can apply to your organization. The first question that I always get is this really a free assessment? Is there any cost associated with it? What are the strings that are attached? Do you realize we're government customers? Yes, all of the above we do. So first of all, this is a Microsoft funded engagement. We do bring in certified partners to be able to help. In this case, Tallan has offered to provide their services to help our customers with this engagement. So yes, it is a free engagement. There is one caveat to that. when we get to the point of deploying and going live within whatever these business scenarios are that we prove out, the Azure consumption that's going to be utilized once this goes into production is the responsibility of the customer. We have done, I'm going to say, a couple hundred of these, and I haven't seen it go beyond a couple of $100s a month. So you will have all of those estimates before anything ever gets turned on in your environment. You will be along with the process the entire way, being up to speed on exactly what's being built, what the costs are associated with that. So you have full visibility and full transparency on that as well. Why is it free? Other than the consumption metrics. We want you utilizing our technologies, and we understand that we have to help you get there. So let's understand where you're at today and what it is you're trying to achieve, and let's bring our teams together, our partners together, and help you realize those business goals. So the data platform in 30 days engagement, what are the prerequisites? Do we qualify? If you're on this call, you've already been qualified. Your account team has already nominated you for this particular engagement. So we're already that much farther ahead. So I'll let the Tallan team talk a little bit more about, kind of rules of engagement and, what we need to do in order to get started. But for the most part, it's very simple. You've already been pre-qualified. You need an Azure tenant. If you don't already have one, the account team can work with you from the Microsoft side to get that set up. So like I said, we'll go through all of the parameters. We'll go through exactly what the DPI 30 is, how it operates, how we get to identifying those key business scenarios, and kind of walk through the process of how the engagement runs, as well as provide some customer scenarios and use cases that other customers have implemented to kind of get those wheels churning and creative juices flowing. So you kind of get some ideas popping in your head. Once we go through the presentation today, really for next steps, what we'd love to do is, if you have ideas or need help vetting those ideas, we'd love to be able to jump on a call with you and kind of work through some of that so we can identify what the actual project would entail, and then be able to build out the scope of the engagement from that point. So start to finish, about 6 to 8 weeks by the time 4 to 6 weeks by the time we are done. We do call it a DPI 30 days being the key word there. It does take about 7 to 10 days to get the paperwork and everything, get the use cases identified. So it's 30 days of actually building out the environment, vetting the architecture back and forth, building, architecting, and deployment. So without further ado, I will turn this over to Dan and the account team, or the Tallan team, to kind of elaborate on how do we work through a data platform in 30 days engagement, and what does it all entail?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Christy. And so I guess before I jump into here, Bart, did you have anything that you would like to add into from the data team side?
Yeah, just really quickly that, we focus only on government customers with your account team. And this is a program that's also available to our government customers. And I think it really helps answer the question, how do we get started? Because there's so many of our government customers trying to do more with less, trying to innovate, and trying to take advantage of some of the cool things that the cloud can bring that mean real savings, that mean real capability adds. And where do we start? How do we get going with this? And these massive things called cloud and all this massive amounts of technology available. And this is the way. This is a way that Microsoft is helping you get going, helping you start kind of on your journey. And it's a fantastic program. I'm pleased to be able to offer it. I love working with these customers. I love working with the program because it does result in some real solid achievements and real things that you can take and put into production and make real for your customers. So I love this program. I think it's a really exciting one, and I love giving away free stuff. So thank you. Back to you guys.
All right. Thank you. And so one of the things Bart made a very good point of this program is, one thing that I love about it is it's broken down that everybody says, oh my God, the cloud, and it's so big, and where a lot of people don't even know where to begin. So what we've tried to do here at Tallan is to break it down as, the old old thing of how do you eat an elephant? It's, one bite at a time. We've tried to break this down into 3 bites, into 3 phases. And the first one being a bit of analysis and design is we will have a project kickoff, and we're going to look at some of the business objectives and the data sources that everybody has, and what they're looking to get out of it. And start with some whiteboarding sessions, and then a broad overview of the Azure data services. And one of the things that Tallan tries to do, and we kind of pride ourselves on, is in this analysis and design piece, is the first part of it is more about training, or not so much training, more of education of here's what these things can do. And one of the things that we always try and let people know from the beginning is like all of the stuff that you learned about traditional on-prem, like let's throw that out the window and let's start to think differently about how we would move these things to the cloud. And we'll go through some of the Azure data services and tell you and explain to you how they work, and then start into the whiteboarding and design sessions of how these things can work for you. And then so once we have an analysis and design, we have some use cases that are put together, and we say that usually we'll go through 1 to 3 scenarios. And then Christy was talking about like the fully funded engagement. We've done these for some customers where they say, you know what, we have a pretty big plan, much bigger than what we want to do for 30 days. We can do this the DPI 30 engagement, and use the first part of that as a part of a bigger project too. So it's not only tied down to just what we can do in 30 days. If there's one of our customers that they wanted to build out their modern data estate, and they knew that it was going to be about an 18-month journey, and they used the DPI 30 as the beginning, got the funding, got kicked off, and really set up that solid foundation to start to move forward. So after phase 1, we'll get into deploying the solution of working sessions to walk through the Azure experience, show you how things are set up in the portal, show you how a basic reference architecture would look for a modern data estate, and start to build out some of these things of ingesting data, enriching data, getting data so that it can be in a reportable format. And then at the end, what we usually like to do is create some sort of Power BI custom report to showcase the data of here it came from this source, it went through some processing, and here's what it would look like at the end. And then from there, what we always like to say is like that's kind of going to be your golden copy, and you can start to build on top of it from there. We have many customers that we go through and we do a DPI 30 engagement, and they say, get the foundation set up for us, get all of these pieces, and then I think we can copy it from there, and we can start to add new data sources, we can add new reports. And that's the third part, is transitioning it over to you and making sure that we share all of the project deliverables that we agreed on in phase 1. And one of the other things that we really like to do is present it all the way up and down an organization, from the people that were working on the DPI 30 engagement with us all the way up to the executives, and show the power of the modern data estate platform. So we're going to get into how this is actually working. Is we will start off in phase 1, and we're going to have the project kickoff. We'll go through the timeline of the events the timeline of the engagement of what we're going to do. And when we talk about the scenarios that we're looking at covering, we're talking about going through a modern data platform. Sometimes people are looking to do reporting. Sometimes people are just looking to do ingestion and aggregation of data and ship it off somewhere else. Sometimes, a lot of the times, what we get told all the time is, we have data in 14 different silos. How can we take these, consolidate it down, and then provide that data to give us more powerful insights into better ways to make decisions, or better ways to run our business? And really identifying what the scenarios are going to be that we're going to work through in the next 30 days. And from there, we'll start the whiteboarding and design sessions on those 1 to 3 use cases that we've figured out. And one of the things that I kind of want to bring up here is a lot of times when we talk about doing these DPI 30 engagements, it's something that's made to be done in 30 days. And sometimes when we go through, I don't want to say it's a proof of concept, but it's more of a proof of concept than a fully productionized data warehouse. It's kind of to show you what the art of the possible is. And then from there, once it's all turned over, we can start to productionize and make the things solid and get them going forward from there. So the first use case that I want to talk about of one of the DPI 30 engagements that we did, it was for the Washington State Employment Security Department. And it's a state agency that's been around and has 30+ years of data all over the place. And so one of the things that they really wanted to do is they said, we have data here, we have data there, we have some old data, we have some new data. You know, the old data doesn't map exactly to the new data. We want to be able to bring it all together. And they wanted to bring it all together and be able to report on it. And what the scenario that we were talking about is they had one weekly FTP process, and they said that it took about 24 hours for the thing to download, 2 hours for it to unencrypt, an hour to do something, and then 90 minutes to restore. So it's something that took well over a day of processing. And when we kind of looked at this, we were like, it's 2021. There's nothing that should really take a full-on day of processing. So that was a scenario that we looked into doing. And the objectives that they had were to construct a modern data platform with a reference architecture so that we could lay it down, it would be solid, and it would be something that they could build on top of. They wanted to be able to pull data sources from legacy systems, from current data sources, from live data sources. They wanted to have a landing zone set up in Azure. And if anybody does decide to do one of these DPI 30 engagements, everybody's going to talk about a landing zone. And a landing zone is nothing more than your initial Azure environment. And then people will say, well, we already have Azure. What do you do then? For most of the customers that don't have Azure, we set up a landing zone from the beginning. There's a little bit of governance that goes into it. And what we're trying to do is make sure that there's a solid foundation. So if you want to build your data platform on it, you can do that. If you want to go and deploy more virtual machines out there for IT, you can do that. If you want to start doing platform services, you can do that. It's going to be a solid Azure foundation that is built for you. The next thing that the ESD wanted to do was to demonstrate the capabilities of some of the Power BI reports and create a sample report and then hand it off to them so that they could build on top of it beyond what we were doing. So we had a 6-week engagement, and we had weekly to bi-weekly meetings where we would go through, and a lot of the stuff that we were building, they were explaining to us what they wanted to build. We would build it and then kind of present it back to them. Some of our other customers, they build alongside us too. And so we can work either way of doing that, of either doing all of the work ourselves or working side by side. And as Christy was saying, kind of teaching you to fish of going through here. So we had bi-weekly meetings. After 6 weeks, we were able to complete our objectives at hand, that we had the data being ingested into the modern data estate with the reference architecture. We were able to provide some reports. And then from there, Washington ESD was able to build on top of what we had. So when we talk about building out a landing zone, a lot of the things that people will say is, what does a sample DPI 30 architecture look like? And this one right here is a very, very basic one. We can go in and have some data sources that you may have on-prem. There may be some that are online. And usually what we'll do is ingest those data sources into a Azure Data Factory and then store it in an Azure Data Lake. And then sometimes depending on what you want to do, we can use Synapse. There's other places where we've used Databricks. We can use a few different things to do some analytics on the data that you have, and then, restoring that in the data lake. And then, or from there, taking that data and then producing custom Power BI reports out of it. And like I said, this is, when you look at this is a very, very simple, rudimentary architecture that we have. But what we've found out over the, the year and a half or so of doing these things is, at the beginning, keeping it simple is what gets everybody's buy-in. If we try and go really, with all the bells and whistles, first of all, you can't finish it in 30 days. And second of all, you don't really come out with a product that is working and that can be shown off to all of the powers that be. So we always like to try and keep it simple. And then if we finish up this sample DPI 30 architecture, then you say, hey, we want to do this now. We'll iterate over it, make sure that everything was working well that we really wanted to, and then build on top of it. And as I said, with that solid foundation, it really, really makes it easy to do. Now here is the modern data estate architecture. This is kind of taking it to that next level, and we'll start to introduce in many different sources, ERP data, CRM data, transactional data. There's some customers that we've done it that they're taking in, system logs. There's other customers that are taking in GIS data. There's customers that we've done it for that are taking in not necessarily help desk, but more work order type of data, and seeing how can we take this work order data and transform that so that we can better serve our customers. And then we'll start to introduce Azure Data Factory, Databricks, business service processing, Azure data sharing. And then a lot of the times, almost all the time, it always is being surfaced out through Power BI reports. So a lot of times they are done for Power BI reports. Sometimes, this data is taken in, it's massaged, and then it's, combined with data from other systems and reported on. And that's a lot of what we're doing here, is taking things, very disparate data sources like we see over here on the left-hand side, taking disparate data sources, combining them, and then being able to provide insightful reports to the business users, or sometimes the end users, the people that are consuming whatever it is that we're sharing out. So one of the things here is we have one of our sample data flows of what we're going through and we're setting up. And we're talking about taking stuff from on-premises, taking stuff from Azure. Usually the first thing that it's going to go through is the Azure Data Factory. Sometimes we'll do some stuff with Azure Databricks, and then from there dump it into storage log, into Azure Storage. It can sit there to curate, and then from there start to send it off to Synapse to do analytics, some Databricks maybe to do some massaging, any types of processing that you want to do on the data, so then it can be surfaced in, it can be, pumped into a model and surfaced. And this can be that it might be for executives and mobile reports. It might be Excel spreadsheets. It might be Power BI. It might be pumped off to data scientists and doing stuff in RStudio. It's kind of your opportunities here are pretty endless, and you can start to do all kinds of things that maybe might not have been economical before, or you just didn't have the tooling to do. All of this stuff now is available for you in Azure. So when we talk about the data lake flow of data, we'll talk about raw data, we'll talk about stage data, we'll talk about curated data, we'll talk about aggregated data, experimental data, semantic modeling data. All of this stuff, it all starts as raw in its rawest form, whether it's coming from feeds from devices, whether it's coming from feeds from internet sources. We can start to take all these things and start to stage them and curate them, and then ship them off to do whatever we'd like to do. A lot of times they are stored in the data warehouse. A lot of times there's a lot of plays with data science now where they're doing experimentation and modeling to see if we can get the best results of what we're looking for in our data. So that was the end of phase one of what we're looking to do. Those are some of the things that we will talk about, the reference architecture and how we're going to do things. And then when we come into phase two, we're actually going to start deploying the solution and conducting workshops and sessions to walk you through the Azure experience. If you're not familiar with the Azure portal, of being able to go in there and create all of these assets inside of Azure for you to be able to use. The other thing that we usually do as part of these, there's a part of the solution assessment program that is called Ready Govern. And if you have an Azure environment and you're not quite sure of, we have things out there, we're not quite sure if it's right or it's wrong or it's indifferent, we can use these Ready Govern sessions to tell you all about the governance things that are built inside of Azure. If you have a brand new environment, it's greenfield development, and we'll go through and make some suggestions and recommendations of the best way to set up your environment and the best way to govern it. And as I said, if you have one already existing, most of the time when we work with people that do have it existing, they say, you know what, there's stuff out there, it's running, we're not quite sure if it's right or wrong or indifferent, but it's running and it's working, and we don't want to touch it. A lot of times with this deployment of the solution, if we are deploying it into an existing Azure environment, we're going to kind of go through and double dot all the I's and double cross all the T's and make sure that all of the things that are in there are the way that we would want them to be, and make sure that we do have that solid piece to build on. So when we talk about going through and deploying our solutions, we talk about our approach for the DPI 30 engagement. And this is mapping Tallan's methodology to Microsoft's cloud adoption framework. And if anybody has ever worked with Tallan before, you'll realize that this is the way that we run all of our projects. It doesn't matter if it's a DPI 30 engagement. It doesn't matter if it's an Office 365 migration, a cloud migration, a application development engagement. We tend to follow this as what we call our Candyland slide for all of our engagements. Is we're going to look at a vision of making sure that we understand where you're trying to go and help you form a vision for your organization. From there, once we have that vision, we will go through and create a roadmap of, how are we going to make that vision become real? From there, once we have the roadmap, we will go through and do some sort of proof of concept, or the piece to, get something out there, get it running, let everybody touch it, let everybody, kick the tires on it. And from there, as we're doing that proof of concept, we're building out the foundation of your Azure environment. And these are the things that I was talking about before with the DPI 30 engagement. There's a Ready Govern and strategy and plan where everybody is on the same page from day one of where are we going with this and how are we going to do it. Once we have the foundation built, we will talk about doing an MVP, or a minimum viable product. So it's a little bit more than the proof of concept, and you actually get something out there working and ready to go. So from there, we will, and this is usually around where the MVP product, that's usually where the DPI 30 engagement will end. We'll have it, it'll be out in production, it's ready to go. You can touch it, feel it, kick the tires on it. And then from there, when people want to keep going, we have an iterative process here where we go through and innovate and migrate and keep going and say, hey, let's do the next scenario. Let's do the next use case. Let's do the next data source. And we keep going on this thing of improving on what we did before, if there was improvements to made. If not, then, keeping it going and doing it the same way that we did it before. So once we've gone through that, the last part of it that we really pride ourselves on is operationalizing the solution. And this is one thing that we've seen in the last 7 to 8 years of doing work in the cloud is everybody always understands how the governance enablement and the operationalization of a system works on-prem. And a lot of times when we get it out to the cloud, people just tend to forget about things like backup and DR and monitoring, or just all of the things that you kind of take for granted that the operations team will do on-prem, making sure that when we finish it, that everything is backed up, everything's monitored. If we need to have a live replica somewhere for disaster recovery, all of that is taken care of so that when we're done, it's out there and everybody can take it and say, all right, if we want to do another cloud project, we're going to make it look like this one. This is going to be our golden stamp. So that's our DPI 30 approach. And as I said, it's just the Tallan approach in general. This is how we run all of our projects, going through, making sure everybody has the vision and that your vision goes all the way through to operationalizing your solution. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about is one of the DPI 30 engagements that we did for DC Water. And what DC Water was doing is they were looking to take in metadata and all kinds of data to do predictive maintenance on water main lines. Because one of the things, if anybody has ever worked in the water industry, and you can see the photo here, is if anybody's ever had a water main break, they know how expensive and time consuming and how much of a literal pain it is when all of a sudden water starts bubbling up from concrete or from pavement. Then they need to say, all right, we're going to shut down the street, we're going to have police out there, we're going to have all these things, dig it up, fix the main line, and then cover it back in, repave it, and we're ready to go. That gets exasperated when all of a sudden it happens at 2 o'clock in the morning. So what DC Water was saying is, we know sometimes when these water mains are going to start to break or start to degradize. Like they're looking at things and they're looking at pressure going through pipes. They're looking if they have air gaps, and then they're like, what, we need to be proactive about this. It's much easier for them to schedule, hey, this road is going to be closed for 4 days, and start to get detours ready and do that, have all of the stuff on site, dig up the road, replace the pipe, and then they're back running within a scheduled time period. But when it happens outside of that and it happens in an emergency, everything is in crazy time. So one of the things that we were doing with them is looking at some of the predictive maintenance of looking through and seeing when pressure was dropping in pipes or pressure was too high, or looking at flow that, hey, when it goes from this street to this street, it's at this much flow. When it gets like the next 4 streets, the flow really drops off. So they're saying there's something going on there. We need to have somebody either go down and look at it, or we need to figure out what's going on there. And as I said before, it's much easier to do on a scheduled basis rather than when you start to see water bubbling up from the street. So the last part that we're going to talk about here is the transition over to the customer. And part of this would be the transition over to you. And this piece is a part that is done between Tallan, between Microsoft, and between you as the consumer of the DPI 30. when we go through these DPI 30 engagements, there are scheduled deliverables that we need to provide back to our customers, you guys, and Microsoft. And the last part of it is a presentation and demonstration of everything that we built, so that when we're finished and everybody says that we're done, that Microsoft knows that we're done, Tallan knows that we're done, and that the customers know that we're done. So it's pretty structured in the transition over. And especially making sure, what we really want to make sure is that you understand everything that we did for you so that you can take it and build on it yourselves. And there's sometimes that people are like, you know what you did is great. You know, we have it from here, and, you know, you keep going and you keep building out your data estate. There's other customers that we work with and go, hey, you know what, this is great. We have these next 7 initiatives coming up. We can take care of 1 through 4. Can you do 5, 6, and 7? So we work alongside our customers and, you know, build out their vision. And then there's the customers that we love the most that say, hey, here's our next 7 initiatives. Take these and do them for us. So we can do, at the end of the DPI 30 engagements, we're more than happy to help you on your journey. But if it's something that you have in-house people to do and to keep on rolling, you can keep rolling with it. One of the other pieces of the deliverables that we will be providing is a sample cost estimate, and Christy kind of talked about this at the beginning, of what this thing is going to look like inside of Azure if you keep running it. So that when we finish up the engagement, and this sample cost estimate will come in the beginning design, and it'll also come out at the end as the as-built. And this is going to be so that nobody is surprised at when we hand this all over that, you know, we did the Cadillac of data estates, and it's going to cost you $1,900 a month. Or, you know, there's the times when we do the very basic minimal DPI 30 architecture that'll cost you, you know, $75 a month. So you'll have a sample cost estimate of everything that is running out there and what it's going to cost you, what it's going to cost on an ongoing basis. So the last customer story that I wanted to talk about was Austin Water, and there's a little bit of a scenario here where we've done a lot of these DPI 30 engagements for water utilities. And the one thing that I will say about the water utilities is it can apply to kind of anything, because a lot of the stuff that water utilities are doing, they're taking data from a bunch of different devices that are sitting out there, or they're taking data from devices, mending it with GIS data of where all of these things are sitting inside of the county or the state or wherever the city that they're in. And what Austin Water was trying to do was get sampled meter reads to look for anomalies. And one of the things that I never realized before we started to do these water utility things is that people actually steal water. And it was one of those things that I was like, wow, I thought water was everywhere, and why would you need to steal it? But they were looking for anomalies in like people's water consumption going absolutely crazy, and, you know, having people like either stealing water or having water main breaks, but they knew that this was happening a lot, and they were able to take the meter readings and be able to pinpoint them almost immediately and do some reporting and alerting off of it. So this was the latest one, or one of the latest ones that we've just done. And these are all of the different types of scenarios of things that we can do inside of these DPI 30 engagements. And as I said before, they're very interactive with our customers and with the state and local municipalities that we're working with. And depending on how much you want to be involved, you can be involved as little or as much as you want. We found that the most successful ones are when our customers are kind of working side by side with us to come up with the solution that we're looking for. So just to kind of wrap up of what we were talking about here for the DPI 30 engagements is it is a three-phased approach here, where we start out with the analysis and design, the deploying of the solution, and the transition to the customer, and making sure that everybody is everybody's happy with the end result. So these are, and as we said before, they're done in a 30, it's called DPI 30 in 30 days. They usually go about 4 to 6 weeks. A lot of the engagement is workshop type of scenarios where we'll go through, sit with everybody like 2 days a week for a couple of weeks, and then we'll kind of go off behind the scenes and start to build out the vision that we were talking about in the workshop scenarios that we have. So from there, we have a few minutes left here, and I wanted to open it up and see if anybody had any questions or anything about the DPI 30 engagement, or about the ones that we've done for Tallan, or how to get started on one of these things. And I was going to say, Sam, is the chat open?
The chat's open, but I actually don't see anything yet.
All right. So if anybody has any questions, you can pipe it in here. And Bart or Christy, I think that you might be able to give a little bit more insight of who they could reach out to on your side if we did want to get one of these things going.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, if anyone has a question, just go ahead and come off mute and ask it. It's absolutely no issue at all. Happy to address any questions. In terms of next steps, if it is something that interests you and you'd like to talk a little bit more about it, I'm happy to set up a call. You can reach out to myself or to Bart or both of us. We're happy to have that conversation to really outline next steps, get a better understanding as to what it is you'd like to achieve, and we'll just kind of talk through it from there.
And one thing I have to say is, when Bart was talking about these before, is one thing that I like that they're fun is you produce something very quickly. So it's almost like one of my friends says that oh my God, I love to vacuum, because at the end, after 5 minutes, all the lines are straight in the carpet. That's kind of what I equate this DPI 30 to, is at the end of 30 days, you have something that is working, that is real, and I just think it's cool that you can belt something out that quickly.
Yet much better than vacuuming carpet, I will say.
One of the other things I really like about this is that it's not as formulaic as some of our other programs, where the outcome is very, ABC. We can get a little wild. We can kind of see what you're trying to do. What's the intent? What are you trying to accomplish? How can we make a positive change? So this is one of those things where we have some flexibility and, dare I say, creativity. And so we get to enable you to do some of those cool projects and some of those vital things that you've been thinking about, but you don't know where to start. This is kind of the place to start. This is where you can start doing some of those cool, innovative things that you were trying to do and just don't know where to go. And I really love the fact that it's a build with motion. It's not a build for. It's not where you're handed a black box and say, now support this. You were involved in the creation. You understand the technology behind it. You got to play with it hands-on. You got to help build it. So it's something that's very supportable and sustainable moving forward. No surprises.
Because you nailed it there, Bart. Is although we've done a number of these for water municipalities, all the things that we've done in the water municipalities have all been a little bit different. One was on meter data processing. There was another one that they said, we have all of our work orders, and we want our people that are going out, in one of the scenarios that they had is, we're flushing fire hydrants, and they all need to be flushed. And they wanted to take, hey, we need to flush all of these fire hydrants, but we need to figure out the best way to schedule these to get somebody so that they can flush 10 hydrants in a day in a neighborhood rather than go to this one, then go out to another one. So there's been all kinds of different scenarios that we've done this. The one that we were talking about for the employment security department, they had a process that took over a day to run, that they cut, they took one spot at one thing in a like 19-step process, and they said, hey, instead of this thing running in 11 hours now, it runs in like 9. So the opportunities of the use cases are pretty limitless. And like you said before, it's the guardrails are that it has to be data estate type of project. But what we do with that data is, the world's your oyster.
And, I think we also understand that, the government has unique needs when it comes to privacy, when it comes to security, multiple clouds. And so, again, this is meeting you where you're at. What cloud do you need to be in? Where do we need to start? What is the most appropriate technology for you that fits in with your roadmap as well? So it's bringing expertise to these engagements that I think is so helpful and results in things that are so concrete and great to move forward with.
All right. Well, I see a few opportunities of people looking for these. That sounds fantastic. If there's no more questions, I think we can wrap it up. And as we said before, Sam will be putting this recording out either tonight, maybe tonight or tomorrow. And feel free to share it with all of your colleagues and anybody that is looking forward to it. And if we're lucky enough, then maybe we'll be able to work with some of you guys. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Take care, everyone.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.